Welcome to the Hope for the Animals podcast, sponsored by United Poultry Concerns. I'm your host, Hope Bohanec, and you can find all our past shows on our website, hopefortheanimalspodcast.org, and you can find my contact information there as well. So we are continuing our Vegan Voices series with a conversation with Thomas Jackson, who has an essay in the anthology Vegan Voices, Essays by Inspiring Changemakers, edited by Joanne Kong, who was our guest last episode. And this book is the inspiration for this series, the Vegan Voices series. I am also a contributing writer to the anthology, and Thomas's essay is in the section on the arts because he is a filmmaker. But what I love about Thomas is his spirit and soul. He is working on bridging the realms of religion and spirituality with veganism. And I feel that these are two worlds that are deeply connected and really complement each other. I think that it's a great area to focus if you have spiritual leanings. Religious and spiritual people are really low-hanging fruit for this compassionate message, and to stretch the metaphor a bit, really ripe for becoming vegans. So before we get started with our conversation with Thomas, I wanted to announce that we're going to do a Vegan Voices contest along with this series. It's a book giveaway. We're going to be giving away a copy of the anthology Vegan Voices to a random winner. And all you have to do to enter is to help us with some promotion and then email me and let me know that you did that. So there's lots of different options. The best way is if you are listening on iTunes or Spotify or one of those podcast listening apps, scroll down to the reviews and write a review, and then copy what you wrote to me in an email and send that to me so I can enter it in the contest. Other ways to enter would be to share an episode on your social media page or pages, or go to our Hope for the Animals podcast Facebook page and leave a nice comment there. And be sure to copy it to me in an email so I can enter it in the drawing. It doesn't have to be long. It could just be like, hey, I love this podcast. Check it out. That's all it needs to be. But be sure to email that to me so I know that you did that, because I may not know otherwise. You can find my email on our website, hopefortheanimalspodcast.org, and I will pick a winner on December 1st, and I'll send you a copy of Vegan Voices. I can also send a copy to a friend or family member as a gift for you as well. We could do it that way, and it'll be in December, so it would be a nice gift for someone else. I really hope you participate in my first attempt at a contest for this podcast. We'll see how it goes. So let's now jump into our second episode of our Vegan Voices series. Okay, so we're going to bring in Thomas Wade Jackson. He received his master's from Florida State University College of Motion Picture Arts, where his thesis film won the Student Academy Award and the Student Emmy Award. And he has also founded the Compassion Project, a multimedia production company. And he's the director of one of my favorite vegan movies, the award-winning feature-length documentary, A Prayer for Compassion. And Thomas is a vegan and animal rights activist. He lives in the woods of northern Florida with his daughter and their cat friend, Obi-Wan. So welcome to the podcast, Thomas.
Hi, Hope. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. You bring together two worlds that I love, and that is spirituality and veganism. So I'm really happy to have this conversation. So let's start with going back in time with your vegan origin story, and tell us a little about your history. Why did you go vegan? When did you go vegan? I know that it's connected to your spirituality. So give us a little background on you.
Well, I grew up in South Georgia. I was a child in the 70s, and I ate definitely didn't know what vegan or vegetarian was. We ate the standard American diet with a southern flavor,
Mm.
a lot of meat and a
Butter.
lot, yeah, butter and cheese and and just a lot of stuff. A lot of processed foods back then too. A lot of fast foods, unfortunately. And I remember I suffered from all of that as well. I had acne and I had really bad allergies, mild asthma, but it was considered normal. Everybody back then, you're a kid, you're going to be sick because we were
Yeah.
all being fed this
Yeah.
this food. Like our parents were probably fed right out of the garden and stuff, but like we were a generation where they were starting to feed us out of the grocery store. But it wasn't until I was in my mid 30s that I would find veganism. I was living in New York City and attending a Unity church, and I was meditating every day. I think that was the main thing. Growing up in the South, I'd seen animals killed for food. I'd seen my grandma wringing the necks of chickens. I'd seen my dad scaling fish and cutting their heads off, and all this while they were still alive. And I just remember being shocked as a child, but looking up and thinking, well, one day I'm going to have to do that because that's what it means to be a grown up.
Mm.
And so I think, parts of me had been put to sleep. Like I'd put part of my compassion toward things to sleep because I knew I was going to have to buck it up and be a man. I definitely was not on a track, especially as a child, to be a vegan. But in New York, once I started meditating every day and became conscious of the food I was eating, like because I'd seen the animals killed, like when I started to eat a piece of chicken, I realized, wait, this is not just food, it was an animal that died for me to eat. Like it's an innocent animal. And at the time, I was trying to inch closer toward enlightenment, and it just felt like being responsible for the death of innocent animals wasn't in alignment with that.
Mm.
And so, though I didn't have words for that, and I didn't know what vegan was, I knew what a vegetarian was, and I kind of realized I was a vegetarian and started to immediately cut meat out of my diet. And like at first week of that, I think within the first week or two, I went to this deli and I'd ordered something. I was very proud to be a vegetarian. I was like, make sure it's vegetarian. And the guy was like, vegetarian or vegan? And I was like, vegan? What in the world is vegan, man? That sounds like Star Trek or something, like Planet Vega. And so this was in 2005. This was before YouTube, like you just didn't have that information floating around. And so I looked at the guy and I said, what's a vegan? And he's like, that means no animal products. And although I grew up in the South, the whole dairy and egg cruelty thing, I never was exposed to. So I had no idea. So I didn't understand why at the time. A part of me went, hey, if people are doing this, there must be a good reason for it. And so I told him to make it vegan. And I was vegan ever since.
Mm.
And then I remember I went to the library and got a book on veganism and read about the history of veganism. And I think what started to bring it home for me, though, is when I was looking for places to eat, I found this website called Super Vegan. And they had all the restaurants in New York listed and all the neighborhoods and what had vegan food and what didn't. And they had a blog. And so I started seeing the blog. And so that brought a lot to my attention. But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, for me, it was a total spiritual thing. I mean, at the time, I remember thinking, I'm going to get weaker. I may get sick. My bones may break. I may die. Like I was
Mm.
indoctrinated just like everybody else, but a
Yeah.
part of me is like, I cannot continue to create this death and suffering in innocent beings and expect myself to ever find peace within my heart. I mean, a part of me just kind of knew that.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because I had a similar experience when I went vegetarian when I was 16, and this was in the '80s in Dallas, Texas. And I
Uh,
did it for the animals. I just didn't wanna eat my friends anymore. I suddenly realized that meat was animals and animals were my friends, and I didn't wanna eat my friends. It was kind of that simple putting it together, but I thought I would be unhealthy. Like everybody told me I was going to be unhealthy. My mom was worried that, I would be sick and unhealthy and that it wasn't good for me, but I didn't care. It was more important to me, that I didn't eat my friends, but because we actually know now that it is healthy for us and it is better for us, it just it shows how, what a beautiful thing it is and how really in a way spiritual it is, that it's going to be beneficial for so many things and that you don't have to compromise your health or anything like that to be vegan. So, this episode is part of a series where we are talking to authors from the new anthology Vegan Voices, Essays by Inspiring Changemakers, edited by Joanne Kong. And you have an essay in this anthology, Vegan Voices. And in the essay, you are calling yourself a vegangelicist. Am I saying that word right?
A vegangelist.
Vegangelist. Okay, a vegangelist. So share with us what this means. What is a vegangelist?
Well, over the last year or two, I started calling myself a vegangelist because I've got the gospel.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. I got the
Hallelujah.
good news, because gospel ain't nothing but a little good news, and the gospel, and the good news I'm a sharing is all about the more you align yourself with your true compassionate nature, the better you're going to feel.
Mm,
The more connection you're going to have to all of life and to whatever spiritual or religious path you're on. I feel more connection to my divine creativity and guidance. I've interviewed so many people over the last few years, and almost everybody has a similar story. They went vegan, their health got better pretty quick, but within 6 months to 2 years, somewhere in there, their heart softens. And whether they came in for the environment or for their health or whatever, suddenly they get the whole picture
yeah.
and they feel the connection.
Yeah.
And so I know that I have a gift, and all people who are sharing the vegan message have a gift. I've seen it change people's lives over and over. It's like a magical elixir that we
Mm,
all have that we can share. And I think a lot of times, if we can come from the point of a vegangelist, someone who is realizes the gift, realizes it, and wanting to give it to help the person, to give them the magic, and then then you plant the seeds, and then if they don't, not everybody's ready for the gift. So you got to make sure when you give them the seeds that you leave them with a lot of love.
yeah.
You water those seeds with love, and you leave them feeling, man, I want to be like that. Like, you don't leave them feeling, don't push them further away. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because as humans, most people don't want to be told what to do. You can see in children, I have an 8-year-old, trust me. Most people don't want to be told what to do. I see it in myself. So we have to somehow find a way to share the gospel, which is good news. We have to find a way to share it as good news, and from a place of compassion, realizing that the person that doesn't have this gift is probably suffering in some way. The karma of that, the karma of the health karma, the environmental karma. Like, there's so many things that are coming to light that show taking the violence out of your diet also takes anxiety out of you, and depression and heart disease, and and all of these things. Like, it just seems to me, it makes sense that if you look at the evidence laid out, one thing that all traditions have in common is like this idea of the golden rule. It's the idea
Right.
of karma.
Right.
It's
Right.
easy to see that what we're putting out is coming back to us. You can see it in your own life, and you can see it on a global scale. And what troubles me as a parent, and that woke me up into activism, is the idea of other people's karma is affecting our children's future. So that's when I realized I had to be more proactive
Yeah.
and become instead of a live and let live, be a good example vegan, I had to become a live and wake up.
Mm,
you know it's one thing to get the information to people, but I want to be more effective in the way I get it out, and hopefully help other people be more effective, because the people that want to get this information out, the animal rights activists that are out there, have so much passion and so much dedication, and that they work so hard that they are pretty much burning themselves out.
yeah.
And so part of the idea of evangelism too is, to me, is self-compassion, is making sure that you're nurturing and taking care of yourself. If you're going to share the light, you need to make sure your light's bright. The brighter your light shines, the brighter the world around you shines in some ways, and the
Mm.
more you're going to attract people to this way of life. I really preach meditation as much as possible. You know, that's part of my vegangelism. It's like meditate, learn to be present, take care of yourself, love yourself, you know, and then you will be way more effective in loving others and compassionately leading them over to the beautiful gift and the elixir of veganism.
Yeah, I love that, and I think my next question is kind of part of this being a vegangelist, and I really believe that the intersection between spirituality and veganism is so complementary, so natural. So many of the world's religions have some version of compassion for all. But so often, especially in Western religions and communities, the compassion ends with humans. That's the line, and the animals are left out. And this, of course, is a reflection of our culture. But what can we do to show faith communities that veganism is just a natural extension of the ethics and beliefs that are already present in their faith?
You know, that's a really good question. And that's one I've, tried to explore over the last few years. I think it really has to do with people who have left their church because they were ridiculed as a vegan needs to find a way to come back and be, if that's something that fed them in some other way, and just see the other people as not having received the gift. You know, we've created an interfaith vegan coalition just for this kind of purpose, to give people tools. I made a prayer for compassion as a tool.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a particular religious community, get the resources you need. You can go to at the Interfaith Vegan Coalition's website, and there's different faith-based kits that help you advocate for veganism at whatever church you're at, as well as if you want to screen a prayer for compassion, you're way more than welcome to screen it. You can contact us. The Veg Fund actually has a grant, and they'll give you some money to give people some vegan food samples and give you literature and stuff to share with people. The Interfaith Vegan Coalition also has lots of different flyers and stuff online that you can take and that you can share with people of compassion. I think the number one thing is just not coming with judgment, like really coming with compassion, realizing that, I mean, as I took this journey, I met so many people that healed themselves from so many of these lifestyle diseases. I was watching my family suffer these same diseases and have surgeries and on medications. And, my dad died of a stroke last year. And like, I can see the relationship between what they were eating and their health, because I've witnessed so many people with their same conditions reverse them. So I know that I'm bringing a gift, and I think that you just have to be compassionate to where the person's at and see what is alive for them.
So you created this beautiful documentary called A Prayer for Compassion. And I'd love for you to tell us about the film, what inspired you to make it, what was that journey like? Tell us about this film.
Well, as I'd mentioned earlier, I became vegan at a Unity Church in 2005. In 2012, my daughter Melody was born. And up until this point, I'd been a really live and let live, quiet vegan. I didn't know any vegans in my life or anything. And but after she was born, I knew I wanted to offer veganism to her, and I'd studied a lot about health and nutrition. But I also wanted to make sure I wasn't the only vegan she knew. So I reached out to a local Talveg. Like I joined the local Tallahassee vegetarian vegan group, and the first meetup was Cowspiracy, the movie. The first
Mhm.
meetup was a screening of Cowspiracy, and that I attended. And oh my goodness, man, I left that thing just in shock.
Mm.
I was really just I don't know how to say it. Like, my daughter, when she was born, I was 45. I only have a certain amount of time on this planet with her, and she's probably going to be here a lot longer. And when I saw what was happening to the environment, although I'd been vegan for almost a decade already, I had no idea. Like, how did I miss that? I don't know how I missed it, but I missed it and I apologize for it. But it really shocked me. And so I started to pray and meditate about it. Like, what can I do? Like, I got to do something. It was like, it just felt calling to, it was a calling, like it was calling to me. That movie like woke something up in me and I had a calling. And I meditated the whole way. The idea came in a meditation, and I'm a single dad. I live in the woods in a little camper home. Like I don't have resources to go to Morocco and India and around the United States, but somehow it all happened
Mm.
because despite the doubts and the fears and insecurities, I felt this was so important. I kept saying yes to whatever, the universe opened, whatever door it opened. In that first meditation, when I was like really trying to figure out what to do, I flashed back to unity. I flashed back to, I used to go to brunch after I became vegan, and we sometimes would have like these group brunches, and the minister and the chaplains and everybody would be there. And all these people that were teaching me about compassion and kindness and connection of all beings were just not applying those teachings to the animals that were on their plate. And it
Yeah.
really shocked me back then. But I was new to veganism. I didn't feel I had any right to say anything, But in that meditation, like now I was aware of the environmental impact and the health impact. And so I just wanted to go out and answer the question of like, how can a spiritual and religious person participate in an industry that's not only destroying the planet, but destroys human health, and it just wreaks horror and terror on a lot of innocent beings and death. I just felt like it wasn't in alignment with what I had learned about these traditions. So I wanted to go and interview people. And the first person I interviewed was Victoria Moran, like before I really had the funds to get going. She said the thing that she says in the film about how compassion is something that all religion and spiritualities have in common.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, because at first I was just, I'm going to make a movie about spirituality and veganism. But then it's like, oh, maybe I should look into compassion. I went home and I looked at the definition of compassion. And the one I looked up had a twofold definition. It was like feeling empathy for the suffering of another's. But the second part of the definition was like to the point of being motivated to take action. So I started seeing compassion as like this action verb. So yeah, I got my camera and started going around and interviewing people. I went to like an animal rights conference and interviewed a lot of people there. And yeah, I ended up traveling all around the United States. And I went to Morocco for the UN conference on climate change. And I got invited to India for a few weeks. I'm a big, like, don't give spoilers, but I'm going to give a spoiler right now. Like, what I discovered is that all of these traditions, at least their teachings of compassion, are in total alignment with a vegan lifestyle.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Not a single one of them said you can't be vegan. You have must eat animals. You know what I mean? Like all of them, none of them mandate it, and all of them are in alignment with it. And
Yeah.
so that's, to me, that's kind of what the movie's about. It's also, we get some cute shots of my daughter, and she gets to take some of the journey with me and stuff. So most
Yeah.
people like the stuff with my daughter. Like she's the star of the show. She is. She's the star of my show.
Aw. Wonderful. Well, I really love it. I think it's really comprehensive in the wide range of religions that you cover and people that you talk to, and there's that common thread of veganism and compassion for animals throughout. So, yeah, it's really, really powerful. So you're working on another film project, and that film, a follow-up film, I believe, is called Compassion in Action: Bringing the Elixir Home. So why are you making this film? What is going to be the focus of this follow-up film?
Well, I never really stopped making the other film.
Yeah.
Uh, well, there was a lot of things I couldn't get to in the other film. I mean, A Prayer for Compassion is really the film that's going to be really focused on religions and what they say about veganism. This next film opens it up a little more and share the elixir of veganism. And along the way, I interview people that I meet and highlight some people that are living compassionate lifestyles. Yeah, and I explore communication. Claire Mann, the vegan psychologist, and self-care with Dr. Melanie Joy, and get to talk to Rich Roll, who's one of my vegan heroes. Our film's executive producer of A Prayer for Compassion, Jerome Flynn, is an actor who was in Game of Thrones. He is also in the film. He joined Silas and I in India for our Compassion in Action tour, where we took the film around, and Silas spoke, 2 or 3 times a day. He went to 14 cities, and I traveled along to about 9 of them.
Wow. Silas Rao, who's another producer of
Yes.
the film and has been on this podcast. Wow, well, that's exciting. I can't wait for that one to come out, and we'll look for that. So, in your essay in the Vegan Voices anthology, you write, quote, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that many traditions, even the Judeo Christian religions, hold up a vegan diet as the ideal. So, what does the Bible say about veganism and cruelty to animals or eating? I guess it's not going to say anything about specifically about veganism, of course, because it's a new concept. But what does it say about cruelty to animals and eating them?
In the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis 1:29, we're given the imperative for a vegan diet. If you read Genesis 1:29, it's laying out the prescription for a vegan diet. And 3 verses before that, right before God tells us to eat plants exclusively, is when God gives us dominion of the animals. So the dominion verse has nothing to do with eating animals. So that's one thing I learned along the way.
And just to mention that, dominion doesn't necessarily mean domination. It
Oh,
can
not at all.
mean taking care of and being responsible for. And when he's laying out this diet in Genesis, it is the ideal. It's what he's saying, what God is saying is the ideal diet, right?
Yes, it's the ideal diet. And our dominion over the animals is like God's dominion over us. It's all about love and kindness and taking care of
Yeah.
these creatures. And it's the same with the planet. Like we're given stewardship over the planet as well. And that's not to exploit it, but that's to help it thrive and to keep it healthy.
Yeah.
But these things have been used many times to destroy the planet and to hurt animals. But then, if you stay in the Old Testament, when you get to Isaiah, you have the peaceful kingdom, and where there's no murder, where the wolf will live with the lamb and the leopard will lie down with the goat. So, these are all within the mythology of the Bible. That's kind of the path it takes. One of the things I like to do, and especially with Christians, is just say, imagine if Jesus were to come back today. And I took him to Tar Heel, North Carolina, to that biggest pig slaughterhouse in the world.
Yeah.
And I walked him in that door, him knowing the devastating effects that eating animals has on human health and raising them has on the environment, and watching the suffering in front of him of these innocent animals. Do you really think that Jesus would condone this?
Yeah.
Anyway, so the good, I started out thinking it's gonna be a slam dunk case. I'm gonna show that Jesus was a vegan and all of this, but I've come out realizing it really, like Frank Hoffman, Reverend Frank Hoffman, who I interviewed when I was talking to him about this. When I interviewed him, and he said, I believe Jesus was a vegan, but I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. He said, if you look at the teachings and what he taught and where we're at today, what would Jesus do today?
So I know that you grew up in a Southern Baptist household, and so did I. So we have that connection. And also in Florida, actually, it was Southern Florida for me. And my dad's grandfather, my great grandfather, was a Baptist pastor, and my grandmama took me to church every Sunday of my childhood. So I wonder what that was like for you and how that evolved your religious identity.
Yeah, well, the church was a big part of my childhood. We went to church pretty much every Sunday. I sang in the choir, performed in the Christmas plays. We had vacation Bible schools and church parties, and I even won the Christian Young Man of the Year as a
Oh.
teenager. Yeah, the church was a big part of my childhood. But I remember even as a child, I can remember like when the preacher would be talking about how different people from other religions were going to go to hell and stuff like
Yep.
that. Always like,
Okay.
I just always wondered and thought that even though I don't know what these other religions, I didn't have the details of them. I just thought, they are trying to live and please God. Like it's just that they were born in another place, or this is what they learned. Like, I had a hard time thinking they're going to burn in hell for eternity. So yeah, one of the major things that well, actually it was three things. There were three early gurus in my life that helped me to kind of break out of the grip of hardcore fundamentalism. The first one was when I was about 10 years old, and I went to see this new movie that came out called Star Wars,
Yeah.
and met this amazing guru named Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I love it.
And there's a scene where he first meets Luke, and he's telling him about the Force and how it like permeates all things and connects all things. And there was something that really resonated with me about that, and I think in some way that kind of planted the seed that there was a little more than what they were telling us out there.
Yeah.
So that was kind of one of the first things. And then as an early teenager, I got into martial arts, and I really liked Bruce Lee. And I read something he had written about how he had studied many paths, how he had studied many traditions, and he had kept what worked for him and left the rest. And in some ways, like that kind of became a little part of my philosophy in some ways the more I learned about different things, because in martial arts, you also start learning a little bit about meditation. So I was starting to incorporate a little of that. It stuck with me. And as I got to be a young adult and went to college, I was a humanities minor with an emphasis in religion. And then right after film school, I had went to California for a little while, and I started getting into meditation. I'd found like Deepak Chopra books, I started reading about Buddhism. And, I just I was really becoming open to many different things. And then I had lived in Nashville for a little bit, and I moved back to Nashville after Los Angeles. And there, somebody invited me. They said, hey, because they knew I was in the meditation. They're like, you should come to our group meditation at the Unity Church on Wednesday. And my mind went, what? A meditation at a church?
Yeah.
Like that just, because to me, I kind of, in a way, I kind of walked away from being a Baptist and from all of this. Like I felt like I still related to Jesus, but I didn't really relate to the people who followed him, kind of thing. And so I decided, okay, I'll try this out. And I really liked it. I really liked the idea of coming together and really praising our Creator in a more open way without the dogma, that's open to truths from many paths. Or one thing about Unity was that Charles and Myrtle Fillmore had started Unity, and Charles really liked getting truths and knowledge from other paths and other religions. So it was very open to an interfaith type of take what works for you and leave the rest type of philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and there is where I, started meditating every day and found veganism.
Yeah, it's interesting. My Southern Baptist upbringing, there was so much good and so much, challenging and negative. But what resonated with me is you saying that the love of Jesus. And I really felt that too. I loved the stories of Jesus and that love. I mean, his whole message is love. And I always really resonated with that and connected to Jesus. But I remember one time I asked my grandmother about animals because even as a child, I really loved animals. I had pictures of animals all over my room and, I really connected with animals. And she said, well, now remember, honey, animals don't have souls. And I remember thinking, well, have you never like met an animal? Well, how can you say that? To me, it was so obvious that they had souls just like us. Whether it was they had a soul or not, they had worth and I don't know. It just seemed an odd thing. It was kind of like, well, just remember that they're lesser than us. Was kind of the tone of it. And that's something that was very frustrating to me, and I didn't resonate with at all. So that's kind of why I moved over to the Eastern philosophies, and that's where I found more connection.
Yeah, I think that that's just something that people kind of put in there so they could continue business as usual.
Yeah.
I forget, I believe it's Jeffrey Cohen in the new film. He's at a Q&A, and I believe it was him that talks about that the word for humans and animals the word for this word used for sold is used for both humans and animals, as well as the word used for meat, flesh,
Yeah.
used for humans and animals. So, it's showing in the Bible that we both have a soul and we're both made of flesh.
Yeah.
We're not. There's no difference in the eyes of the Creator. When
Yeah.
you were talking about Jesus, he was the third guru, by the way. I said there were three early gurus, and he was the third one. And think about this. It's the idea of his teachings about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. The idea that people can come to you with scripture and justify many things, but if you go within, you can see that, is that really in alignment with compassion and kindness and the things that Jesus taught? Is it really in alignment with that? To me, that was very freeing. The idea that I'm allowed to discern and encouraged to discern. And I think when Jesus talked about the kingdom of heaven is within, seek ye first the kingdom, I think he was teaching people to meditate,
Mm, mhm.
and to not just go by some written word that can be used to justify anything.
So you work with the Interfaith Vegan Coalition. I think you mentioned them earlier, and through that program started Compassionate Living Circles, and that project provides a way to get the conversation going about compassion for all beings in local religious and spiritual communities, right? So tell us about that project.
Okay. First, I'll just want to give a shout out to the Interfaith Vegan Coalition and Lisa Levinson and Judy Carmen.
Yeah.
So, the Interfaith Vegan Coalition is doing a lot of work. They're helping us get a screening into the Parliament of World Religions. They had done one when it was in person, and now this year we're going to do it again. It'll be virtual, but they have two or three panels as well in that Parliament of World Religions. They're doing a lot of great work. The Compassionate Living Circles, they were kind of created. I had created with the film a Compassionate Living Challenge, which at the end of the film, I challenge each of us to find ways to bring more compassion into our lives, basically. And so I created this challenge just to encourage vegans and non-vegans to explore ways to bring more compassion into their lives. As part of the challenge, I created these four pillars of well-being, four things that really help me stay evenly killed and productive and connected to my spiritual path, which are very healthy vegan eating, like making sure you're getting your nutrients, meditation, exercise, and good sleep. So these are what the challenge is about in some ways, is taking better care of yourself. And there's other suggestions for bringing more compassion in your community. But the circles, the compassionate living circles, are an extension beyond that. Creating a compassionate circle in your area this is how we started. We started with the idea that we would create these compassionate living circles, and you could create one in your church or it could be interfaith. It was no like one way you had to do it. As you created them, you would be in working with Interfaith Vegan Coalition. You'd have all of our resources, and we would help guide you, and you would help brainstorm new ways as well to get this message out to the religious community via screenings of like A Prayer for Compassion and other documentaries and cooking demonstrations, potlucks, different ways to get the message out. By the time I had everything ready for the circles, the quarantine had started. So we
Hmm.
have not been doing live meetings. But we have a monthly meeting right now, and it shouldn't be long. I mean, it seems like people are doing screenings and stuff again. I think the Veg Fund may have started back up with their grants, their screening grants. So that being said, I think we might start trying to take it out into the real world. But right now, it's still all virtual.
Right.
But it's a place where people who are already vegan and activists and spiritual can come together with other people who are vegan and spiritual, and to really support one another on your journey, on your vegan journey or whatever journey you're on, as well as work together to bring the message out to more people.
Nice. Nice. And another monthly gathering that we should probably mention is the Compassion Consortium, a new online monthly gathering, and I have it written on my calendar. It's the third or fourth Sunday of every month. I'm not sure if it's a set third or fourth, but it's a Sunday late in the month, and I have written on my calendar vegan church, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what it is. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm really just what is
Kind
it
of a
called?
participant, as I am.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm really just somebody who attends the services,
yeah.
but I know Victoria and William pretty well, and they're working with two other vegan ministers, and they have really created this beautiful spiritual place that we can meet once a month
Yeah.
and really feel the love. Victoria usually interviews a spiritual vegan of some sort or a religious vegan of some sort, and we learn more about their tradition and about their activism. And what I really love is at the very end, they throw everybody in breakout rooms because right now it's on Zoom as well. And
Hmm.
so you never know who you're going to end up in a little breakout room with. So it's always fun. So
Hmm.
far, I've really had a great time. It's usually like when it's time to come back to the real group, we're like, can we have some more time? So I love it. Yeah, no, it's great work. I would encourage people who are spiritual and vegan to check that out and to hopefully you'll have links to that.
Yes, I will. I'll
Uh,
certainly put a link. It's the Compassion Consortium, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes, definitely. So, Thomas, what gives you hope for the future?
that's a good question. If you turn on media or check on what's happening in the world, there's a lot of reasons to maybe not have hope,
Yeah.
to fear, I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world, but honestly, there always is. Like, and the media really hypes up the negative. That's what sells, you
Mm.
know? So I think what really gives me the most hope, I would start firstly the children that are coming up. All of the animal rights activist children I've met just inspire me beyond belief. They're vegan at an early age, their hearts are already softened, they're able to really see the bigger picture, and they're working hard, to make a difference. Watching and seeing people make changes, watching them vote, make different choices with their dollar, vote differently with their dollar, more compassionately with their dollar, and then seeing it reflected in the stores and in the fast food places, that gives me hope. I mean, I'm seeing that when people change, the world around you changes too. So we just need to keep working on changing, growing, and evolving ourselves and helping the people around us evolve, becoming more compassionate. Like if we just do our part, I feel like the other thing too is like we're connected in a way now we weren't when we were children. We have the ability to know what's happening in ways that we didn't. And there's good and there's bad in that. But I think that the good news is that there's a lot of stuff that's been hidden that is coming to light and people are changing and we're seeing the difference. People are becoming empowered, they're becoming aware. It's the indoctrination is so deep, it's been for so many years. It's going to be a process. It's going to be like it's hard to see it when you're in the middle of it, but if you look back at 5-year increments, you see the change.
Well, Thomas, it's really been great to have you on. Thomas, the vegangelist. Thank you for the good news, the good message, and appreciate you being on.
Thank you, Hope. I had a wonderful time.
Thank you for listening to the Hope for the Animals podcast. So, I want to remind you of our Vegan Voices contest that I mentioned in the beginning of the episode. I will be giving away the book Vegan Voices Essays by Inspiring Changemakers to a random winner on December 1st. You can also have the book be a gift. I can send it to a friend or family member on your behalf. All you have to do to enter is to help us with some promotion and then copy what you wrote either in a review on iTunes or on social media and send it to me in an email so I can enter you in the contest. I love how Thomas referred to veganism as a gift and how pre-vegans just haven't received the gift yet. I think that's a really cool way to think about it. I also love when he said, if you're going to share the light, you need to make sure your light is bright. The brighter your light shines, the brighter the world around you shines. It's a great reminder to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of each other and the animals and find what helps you to brighten your light, what helps to bring the light from within so that you can shine it out into the world. And I hope that your light shines brightly and you're filled with the gift of compassionate knowing so you can share that light, share that gift. And the best place to start is to live vegan.